Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Hammer, an umpire podcast. I'm Kevin Weber. I've got a pretty packed episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a variety of things, including the benefits of walking, assigner expectations. We'll spotlight Hall of Fame umpire Bill McGowan. We'll talk about the new NCAA bat color and testing rules. We'll do a little bit on three-man mechanics. We'll take a look at one particular umpire's goals that were sent in to me. And we'll talk about information on best places to buy gear, best places to get training materials, and my most frustrating moment and my most memorable moment. So sit back, make sure your speakers are working well. You've got your earbuds in tight for another episode of The Hammer, an umpire podcast. Last season, I delved into the role of the assigner. I did some assigning for my local high school association, mainly sub-varsity, baseball assigning, though I helped out with some varsity assigning when we had a bunch of rain. We had a terrible spring here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I had a lot of cancellations and had to rework a bunch of games. Also helped a little bit with the softball signing too. So I used the Arbiter Sports platform, which I think is really good. I like it quite a bit, and kind of was trial by fire really, and I had to really delve into that and figure things out, but I'm pretty good with that kind of stuff, so it worked out pretty well. Then in the late spring through the whole summer, I also assigned through Arbiter and everything for this new local travel league that these travel teams that have this league throughout the season, from like 9U teams all the way up to like 15U teams, a whole bunch of games, and it was a good experience overall. I mean, some challenges, of course, but anyway, being in the assigner role, you start to understand what assigners go through, and the curtains pulled back of how they try to put things together. And, they're human beings, assigners are, and, they make mistakes and they try to figure things out, and they have a lot to do. I mean, we all have, one schedule we're trying to get for working our baseball games. They have hundreds of schedules, So for the most part, most umpires, they understand that, and they're good about things. There's always those few problem umpires that seem to always be causing some kind of trouble for their assigners, and don't seem to understand that they're always the one they're having to deal with, right? But they had a NASO article a week or two ago that talked about assigner expectations, and that's what I'd like to talk about here. They mentioned about 6 different things that you should be thinking about when you're gathering your schedule here in the wintertime, and then as you start to work it in the spring. So first thing is being professional. That's probably the most important thing, is handling things in a professional manner. Bringing your A game every time you're on the diamond. Personally, I don't know how you can't bring your A game. I don't have any other game. I'm not good enough to have an A, B, C, D, E, F, G game out there. I only know one way to call balls and strikes, and I try to work on that. I've gotten pretty solid at it, but I'm working on it all the time. I don't have like the game that doesn't matter strike zone. I really don't. I just call it the way that it is. How far off the plate is it supposed to be a strike or a ball? I don't understand that. So also, you never know who's watching. I know you've heard this before, but it's so true. There's countless stories I've heard about, a parent of somebody that's significant in that community, seeing what happens, with an umpire. Either they look terrible and really do themselves in, or they do a great job and they give themselves some opportunities. They might be in the stands. Your assigner might stop by. You never know what's going to happen. So you've always got to be hustling. You've always got to be doing things 100%, whether you're working a low-level youth game or you get a Division I NCAA assignment, or whatever it might be. All right, so you got to work the same way every time. Also, whether it's your first and only game of the day, or you're working 5 games that day, I mean, you've got to give the same effort. I know that's hard, but that's kind of the goal. All right. The other thing is how you deal with things after the game. Off the diamond. You shouldn't be engaging parents. You should be trying to avoid those kind of situations, or fans and that kind of thing, and certainly players and coaches. And also, just how you handle things before the game even starts. Are you there on time? Do you contact your partner and make sure you're both on the same page? Here in Michigan, or at least in West Michigan, for high school games, you're expected to be there at least 30 minutes before game, and for collegiate games, at least 1 hour. Most people are there a little bit more than that beforehand, especially if you haven't worked with a particular partner. So if your assigner sees that you're doing those things and hears about that and doesn't hear bad feedback about those things, that's going to help you move along in the direction that you want to be. Second thing that they kind of talked about was being honest. This is very important as well. All right. If there's some kind of issue going on, you need to tell the truth about it, because invariably your assigner is going to find out that you lied, and that's hard to come back from. All right. There's some guys, it seems like they had everybody in their family die in the spring, and that's why they had to turn back a game, or why they couldn't, help out, or whatever the case may be. All right. I know certain situations do happen and tragedies do happen, but sometimes you just got to suck it up and do a game. I mean, there are always those times, especially if you do a lot of games, where you got a game on Thursday and it's Tuesday and you really don't feel like doing it. You hope that there's a big thunderstorm or something, but it doesn't happen, and you just got to suck it up and go do your best job. I know you get worn out. You can't just come up with some excuse and try to turn it back into your assigner and make more work for them. That goes with not griping about other officials behind their back, not griping about your assigner and what your schedule was. You got to understand that there's a lot of variables that go into, what an assigner has to do. Okay. So next thing is being accurate. This is probably one of my biggest pet peeves, and certainly my assigner's biggest pet peeves, is not having blocks, for your schedule. You don't want to just big old open schedule and then you just start declining a bunch of games because you're not open, or, I didn't realize that, that's my kid's birthday, this and that. I always see the messages come through like on Arbiter Sports, like, that's my wife's birthday. Well, why didn't you block it then? I mean, what are you doing? If you know it's your wife's birthday every year, if you're not going to work that day, that's fine. Just don't make it so that I have to I assign it to you, you turn it back, and I got to assign it again. Because assigners don't get paid, again to assign it a second or third time. You just made more work for them. That puts you on the short list. And let's not, we'll be honest about it. The guys that make more work for their assigners are not going to be getting themselves ahead. All right. So in Arbiter Sports, if that's a platform that you use, and I know a lot of guys do, you can block dates very easily. You can block it for multiple assigners, or block one assigner, not block another assigner, for whatever groups you're in. Very easy to do. If you don't know how to do that, there's probably people around you that can show you how to do that. Next thing for that assigners like is guys that are flexible. Guys that if there's a tight situation, they can call them up or text them or something, and on a short notice, they can help them out with a particular game, or they can do it tomorrow. Or, they call them the night before. Hey, can you be at this school at 4:30 tomorrow to do this game? Boom, they can do it. They can count on them. That's going to get you ahead. When your name pops up on the computer for a particular assignment, and they see you and a bunch of other people there, you're more likely to get those things and move yourself ahead and getting better games in the future. Sometimes it gives you some opportunities to work a level that maybe, you're not quite there yet, but you get that shot because you're available. I know that's tough for some people. Sometimes you have a job and you just can't get out at the drop of a hat. I mean, I'm a high school teacher. I teach till 2:35. There's times where I might have days off and different things where I can do games, but in general, it kind of is what it is. Next thing is, being that volunteer, being that senior guy that, helps out newer officials, is a good partner, a good mentor, does the things that helps move the association along, helps the assigner to, within the group to develop better officials that they can work certain games. So if you're that kind of guy, that really gives you some bonus points with your assigner as well. And the last thing is being patient. Being patient with your assigner as far as, mistakes that they might make. Maybe there's something wrong when you see your schedule, as far as a time or schools or the pay or whatever it might be. You need to be able to approach them and communicate with them. Some assigners just want a phone call. Some guys like email. Some guys like to be text. Whatever it is, having an idea of what they like and how they like to be communicated with, and doing that to the best of your ability. All right? And then understanding that sometimes, there's just a bunch of games that they got to fill, and they're not always thinking about one particular person's schedule, and, maybe that they should be getting ahead in certain ways, or maybe getting a postseason assignment, and it kind of slips their mind or something. Well, hopefully it happens, next year. That's what it is. No use complaining about it. Of course, you don't want to move ahead too quickly anyway, because guys that seem to do that crash and burn. But it's just coming back to the first point of being professional and understanding that assigners are human and that they're trying to do a big job, and that sometimes things don't always work out for every individual person, which might be you. All right? Anyway, if you're an assigner out there and you have some feedback on this, or some comments about what expectations you have as an assigner, I'd love to hear from you. You can go to the Anchor app and leave me a voicemail, or you can email me at spinalfusion06@yahoo.com, or you can go to the Hammer podcast or Hammer Podcast Facebook page and leave a comment there as well. Anyway, some things to think about as we move into the spring: how you handle your assigners and the kind of expectations that they have for you. If you are able to do that, you're going to start getting ahead and maybe getting better assignments in the future.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies, to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
I've been thankful that this week I've gotten some feedback on Facebook and through emails about things on the podcast. And one thing that I got was from Sven Bridstrup, who basically left a comment on Facebook saying, "Less history, more rule scenarios, and mechanics, please." So, I can understand that. However, I have gotten feedback from people that like the history, particularly the umpire spotlight. So I'm not going to be doing away with that, but I certainly will try to add in some more mechanics and rule scenarios, since that might be something that several people are looking for. Nonetheless, I'm going to do a little three-man mechanics segment with bases empty when U1 goes out to right field. Basically, this is a counter rotation in which the U3 and the plate umpire revert to two-man mechanics. So in this situation, U1 takes responsibility for the fair foul and the catch, no catch. The plate umpire moves up the first baseline in foul territory and takes any play on the batter runner at first. And then once the batter runner reaches second base, the plate umpire returns home for any potential plays at the plate, which you would do if you were working two-man. U3 moves to the cutout at second when all this is happening for any plays there, and also has any responsibility for a play that might come into third base. So in general, there are quite a few, or several, situations in which the plate umpire in three-man is going to be covering third, but this is really the only situation that he is covering first base, and it's certainly one to know if you are working three-man and have the opportunity to do that. So there you go, Sven. There's a mechanic segment for you. Hopefully that will please you, at least for this episode. I got an email from Nathan Harvey, a Michigan-based umpire who's kind of a newer guy, just getting into this avocation that we all love. And he asked a few questions in this email. He asked, what's the best place to get gear? What's the best place to get training materials while he waits for our high school association to send him some stuff like his rule books and case book and things like that. He asked if he can write off uniforms and equipment and things like that. Yeah, you can do that. Make sure you look at the tax laws or talk to your accountant or whoever does your taxes and make sure that's all good. But yeah, that's possible. But I am not giving you tax advice, but it is possible to do that. So look at that. That always helps out a little bit. Also, he asked, what is my most frustrating moment and my most memorable moment? So I'll try to answer those two. Those are kind of tough, but I'll see what I can do in this segment. Let's start first with gear, okay? There's lots of places to get gear. A lot of them are online. You can Google these websites. They all have websites, the places I'm going to mention. What are the best ones? I don't really know for sure. Usually the best one that most umpires think is the one that gives them the best price. Maybe that's free shipping. Maybe gives them a percentage off because of an association that they belong to. That's usually the best one, all right? Like I bought my Ref Smart timer. I'm just looking for the cheapest deal, all right? I mean, it's the same timer at any of the places I buy it from. Whoever's going to give me the best deal and I have to pay the fewest number of dollars, that's where I'm going to buy it from. So that's the best for that time. As far as maybe you like a particular type of umpire shirt. Some people like Smitty shirts. Maybe somebody likes a Honig shirt. Well, whatever. If you like those better, there you go. Some people like the Jerry Davis pants better than other types of pants or something, than the Smitty pants or something like that. So that doesn't matter. It's just whatever you think looks better, whatever fits you better, go for it. Whatever is the better deal. Some guys think certain things hold up better than others. But some of the places to look, Jerry Davis and Smitty, those are two things I just mentioned. You can look there. But Umpatire is a place you can look. They usually have some deals and have all the standard stuff that you might need, including equipment, like if you're looking for new shin guards or something like that. Correct Call Officiating, more of a Midwest type of place, especially if you work in Michigan. That's a good place to go because they have some MHSAA type stuff there. Honig's Whistle Stop used to be based out of Ann Arbor, but the company was sold and moved out west. But they still supply lots of officiating things, including baseball and softball uniforms and equipment. What else here? I see some other ones that are online that I've looked at before, like Anthem Sports, Baseball Monkey, Smith Sportswear. There's many of them around the country, but those are some of the bigger ones. So, just kind of look and see who's giving you the best deals. This time of the year, they're always trying to do their kind of Black Friday, Christmas type sale. So they have usually free shipping is usually the best thing you can get. But sometimes if you belong to a particular association, they'll give you like 10% off or something like that as well. So those are some places to get gear. Of course, you can go to your local sporting good places and look for things, but specific umpire gear is usually on certain websites. As far as like face masks, chest protectors, shin guards, I personally like Force 3. I know there's lots of other good masks and chest protectors and shin guards out there, but those are the ones I like. You can buy those from some of those websites I mentioned, or you can go directly to the Force 3 website and look at those things as well. All right. Equipment's really important, especially your face mask. We don't want concussions. Get a face mask that's going to prevent you from getting a concussion. There's several good ones out there. Look at the reviews. Talk to your colleagues. See what they say. That's the surest way to end your umpiring career is getting one or two concussions and then you're done. All right. If you're getting, hit on the shin or the forearm or something like that, we all survive those. But stuff and blows to our heads, that's a little bit tougher. As far as training materials, there's a good number of stuff out there. Magazines and books, those kind of things. If you're a high school guy or below Little League, the NFHS, the National Federation of High Schools, their website sells some materials there. They have, case books and things that they sell. They have little publications that they sell, including their the yearly preseason guide that they put out for rule changes and other things. They have mechanics books that they put out. Those are good. Sometimes you get them for like $10-15. Sometimes they run specials this time of the year. It's a good time to look if you're looking for those kind of things. NCAA College Umpires, the CCA Baseball Umpires Manual, the Collegiate Commissioners Association. If you sign up for the NCAA, they send you a new one each year. But if you're not, and maybe you're not planning on doing any college umpiring, but you can probably look on eBay or some other place like that and get a used one from like last year that somebody's selling. Might be able to get it. I'm just guessing like $10 or something like that. The referee store through NASO is a really good spot to go. They have lots of publications that are good, and Referee Magazine is a great thing to have come into your house, and also their digital copy through their app is great. You really should look into some kind of insurance. NASO has that. If you, it costs about $120 a year, I think. But you get Referee Magazine, you get pretty good insurance. I can talk about that on another segment in a future episode. But good information on all kinds of sports, because it's the National Association of Sports Officials. So they have stuff on there in basketball and softball and football and soccer and baseball and all kinds of stuff. Some of those things are pretty interesting to look at. I mean, if you do multiple sports, obviously that's great. But I only do baseball, but still I find it interesting sometimes to see some kind of mechanic thing that they're trying to write about for football or whatever it might be. And then, you can see some of the main issues that all officials kind of deal with by looking through that magazine. But when each season comes along, like when it gets closer to the baseball season, they have more articles on baseball and softball and those kind of things. So that's a really good thing to look into. Sometimes associations, I know our high school association here, will cut you a little bit of a deal. You get a little bit better rate if you go through them than if you just do the standard rate. So that's something to look at. There's lots of videos out there online. Some good, some not so good. I've mentioned it before, but on Facebook, the United Collegiate Umpires Facebook page, they have all kinds of videos on there on, a lot of times it's on 3 and 4 man mechanics. But some of it, sometimes I'll do some 2-man, but some of it applies to just basic umpiring. So some of those videos are really good to look at. I mean, if you do some Google searches on whatever it is you think you might need to know, there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of good video out there, and it's definitely a way to learn. And then, of course, the other way to learn is just, watching baseball games and going to baseball games, particularly professional games, and seeing how guys work a particular base or how they work the plate. Those are definitely very beneficial. As far as your other couple questions concerning most memorable moment and most frustrating, let's take frustrating first. I can't say I have like specific, like one specific frustrating moment that stands out. But the thing that always stands out more than anything, I guess, is when you got to play right, or you got a ruling correct, and somebody's arguing about it, and they don't know the rule, and they're wrong. Okay, that is the most frustrating thing, and it seems like that is usually when people are arguing with you. When you might have missed something, when you are feeling a little unsure about something, it seems like most of the time people don't even come and say anything. You just let it go, and you're like, okay. If you make a say for an out call and you think, whoa, I don't know, man, I might have missed that one. And somebody comes out, and sometimes they do. They'll come out, and they're like, what'd you have there? And you've got to explain yourself or try to explain what you had. You're thinking, well, yeah, that was close. I might not have got that right. But sometimes, man, you just know you nailed it. and they're out there in your face or something, and you got it right. That is frustrating. That drives me crazy. Just like I can recall the first time I ever got hit by a batted ball. I was working two-man. I was in C. There were runners on first and third. This is like a summer league game or something. And line shot, towards shortstop. I tried to get out of the way, and it's like the thing that, worries you the most. I'm usually fairly agile, but I wasn't enough on this play. Hit my pant leg. All right, I know it hit it. Went in the center field. Of course, the guy in third scored. The guy in first went to third. And everybody's going. I called time. And, of course, the ruling is, you only advance if you're forced. So that guy that was on third had to come back. The guy that made it to third that was on first had to go to second. And now we got bases loaded. Well, obviously, the offensive team was not too happy with that. And they thought I got it wrong. And they were all, yelling at me and everything. Of course, this was just as, cell phones were getting going here. So about an inning later, they looked it up on the phone. The coach came out and said, "Hey, you got that right." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I mean, I think everybody should know what it is if you get hit by a batted ball. That's like the worst thing that can happen. You want to avoid that at all costs. But sometimes it's unavoidable. So that was kind of frustrating because I know I got it right. I mean, I'm like, "Hey, I'm sorry I got hit. I tried to get out of the way." But, that is what the ruling is. And so at least in the end, they knew that I got it right. But frequently things like that happen. And you got it right. And the game ends and, you just go home. And they probably still think you got it wrong, even though you got it right. Maybe they looked it up, but I don't really give them enough credit for doing that most of the time. As far as most memorable moments, I mean, I've been pretty lucky. I've had some good memorable moments. I guess I'll take a most recent one. Last year I was lucky to work the state finals again here in Michigan. And when we work the state finals in Michigan, you get 2 semifinal games and then one of the final games. So we work 4-man. So I worked first base the first game and then third and then second for my final. So I had the Division I, the bigger school, final, the 9 a.m. game on the opening game of everything, all right, on Thursday. I had Rockford and Macomb, Dakota, for those that are from Michigan. We hold them at Michigan State University at their field and everything. Luckily, they've installed lights, and they're really good LED lights there because it was starting at 9 a.m. in a mist. Their field drains very well, and we had lights. It was, some challenging playing conditions. The ball was wet. I mean, I was like drenched, by the end of the first inning. But it was a great game, and ended up going 8 innings. We played 7 because it's high school. And Rockford ended up winning 3-2 in the bottom of the 8th on a ground ball to short that was, wild throw to first base, pulled the guy off of first base. The guy on second kept running, came home, threw to the plate, and the guy was safe. And, everybody's out going crazy and all that kind of stuff. So, but the big thing was, I was on. I mean, I was really on my plate job. I'm sure I missed a pitch or two, but I didn't miss very many. And I was very consistent, and I called a really good game. The supervisor, my umpire supervisor after the game gave me some nice compliments. And I really felt like I did a really good job, and I was really focused. In a big moment, in a big game with a big crowd, I, really did what I could do. I did the best I could do. That doesn't always work out that way, but I'm really, really happy that it did at that particular moment. So I will remember that game for a long time. I mean, I work hundreds of games a year. And when it's all said and done, it's going to be thousands of games, like lots of you guys. And so only a few stand out, but I know that one's going to stand out. I'll remember that one for a long time, and I have a good feeling about that, and some good memories about how it worked out. So that's probably at least my most recent memorable game, I guess. So, and I hope that some of you guys have similar things like that. If you have a most memorable game or a most frustrating moment, feel free to share that with me. You can send me an email at spinalfusion06@yahoo.com. You can leave me a message on the Facebook page, the Hammer podcast. And you can leave me a voice message through the Anchor app. and I certainly will use that on the show. All right. So hopefully that answers some of your questions there, Nathan, and helps you maybe get yourself a little bit more prepared for this next season. This episode's umpire spotlight is Bill McGowan, Hall of Fame umpire who umpired in the American League from 1925 to 1954. A lot of people called him number one and the superstar and lots of other nicknames. He was a very confident umpire, and it was said that he was a great ball and strikes umpire. Ted Williams at one point said that he probably got 99.9% of his ball and strike calls correct. And, of course, Ted Williams was known for having a great batter's eye. Old-time Yankees manager Joe McCarthy used to tell his players not to ride McGowan when he was behind the plate because he was the best ball and strike guy that they saw, so there was no use doing that. In his day, McGowan was a bit of a flamboyant umpire, made loud strike calls and, over the top, sometimes safe and out calls. He was known for his signature strike motion, which consisted of a clenched fist held about 4 inches or so above his head. I guess he kind of used a hammer. And he knew he was good. There was one time when Mickey Vernon from the Washington Senators questioned him about why he called somebody safe, and McGowan shot back at him, because I'm the best umpire in the business. I'm number one. And that kind of led to some of his other nicknames, like I already mentioned, number one, but Chesty and Wild Willie of Wilmington, because he was from Wilmington, and Hot Shot. Sometimes those were for some praise, sometimes for, his arrogance that he definitely displayed. And nowadays we talk about kind of being the invisible umpire or official. But that certainly was not the case with McGowan. He'd call a ball a strike to speed up a game, or a strike a ball as a favor to a batter, which obviously that you wouldn't get too far with that nowadays. Because of different things that he did, he received 3 suspensions in his career, once in the minors and twice in the majors for basically getting ticked off and displaying his temper. But he was super durable. Once he called 2,451 games. That's like during a 16-year period. He never missed a game. 1925 roughly to 1940, in spite of some of the suspensions, of course. So he had injuries as he went along, but he certainly endured them and managed to make it to 8 World Series and 4 All-Star games, including the first All-Star game in 1933. McGowan did several things other than umpire and things for baseball, for that matter. When he was in the minor leagues, and I guess this was acceptable at that time, he would recommend players to different teams. Like he recommended Goose Goslin and Bucky Harris to the Washington Senators. He recommended Jimmy Dykes to the Philadelphia Athletics and, owner Connie Mack and everything. Once you got to the majors, he didn't do that, but he always seemed like he was, trying to help out the younger, newer, rookie-type players to help them get ahead and make them understand how things were working. So, as I was said, he's from Wilmington, Delaware. He was born in 1896, and his father, owned like 3 beer and whiskey stores in Wilmington, and died of pneumonia when he was, a young man, and that was in 1909. Bill McGowan, he never was a drinker or anything like that, surprisingly. And if he invited you out to get a drink or something, he drank something non-alcoholic, like a milkshake or something like that. He took up boxing when he was in high school, and even turned professional, but he got knocked out in his first professional bout and called that quits. His brother, John, who was in the Wilmington Fire Department, introduced Bill to umpiring. When he was 16 years old, in 1912, Bill agreed to sub for his brother at a semi-pro game in Newark, Delaware. And he took to it, for about 4 innings. He said, things were a little scary before he basically figured out that he didn't need to keep his eyes closed when he was trying to call pitches, and he opened them up, and then the rest of the game he kind of liked it. He filled in from time to time after that. In the 19-teens through 1922, he bounced around in the minor leagues. He worked some time in the Delaware County League. He worked in the Virginia League. He worked in the International League up until 1922, when he got suspended in 1922, the first time in the minor leagues that happened. He decked Baltimore Orioles second baseman Harry McCurdy, who had objected to being ejected by landing a punch on McGowan's chin. Of course, he was a boxer, so McGowan then landed a right jab to the jaw of a policeman who'd stepped in the two. He didn't see him coming, I guess. Anyway, fined and fired. He got a reprieve several months later from the Southern Association, who was confident that he was a really good umpire and that he could control his temper. And then after McGowan umpired a couple years in the Southern Association, American League President Ban Johnson offered him a job in the majors, and he made his debut at Philadelphia Shibe Park on opening day, April 14th, 1925. McGowan served in World War I, and around that same time, 1918, he met his wife, Madge, and they eventually settled in the Washington, D.C. area in Chevy Chase, Maryland, where they lived for a majority of their lives. An interesting thing about McGowan is that a player's status made no difference to him, which is, really what it should be for everybody, I guess. So somebody like Babe Ruth or Ted Williams, they were getting the same treatment as, a rookie. So in 1925, when he was a rookie umpire, he was calling a New York Yankees spring training game, and he threw out Babe Ruth, who complained. And basically McGowan said, "I know who you are and what you're all about, but when I'm wearing this blue suit, you're just another ball player." So he, threw him out of the game. Ted Williams, in a game at Fenway Park in 1942, decided to strike out in response to the boos from spectators. Ted would get booed frequently, even though he was a great player. And after he took 2 lazy swings, McGowan told him that after a third such swing, you'll be thrown out of the game, fined, and probably suspended, because he thought he was being lackadaisical and not giving his all. So anyway, Williams decided to try a little harder, and he blooped a single in the left. And anyway, rookies that would come and play for the first time in front of McGowan, he'd call him Bush or Busher and stuff like that, and tell him who was in charge and everything. And sometimes he'd be a little uppity to him. But that was the way it was back in those times. So he certainly was never afraid to throw somebody out of a game, probably sometimes a little too quick. Sometimes he knew somebody was going to start arguing something, and before they even argued, he'd throw them out. I don't think that'd go very far nowadays. But sometimes he understood the humor of the situation. There was one situation where there was this pitcher for the Red Sox, Sid Hudson. He was getting upset with McGowan's strike zone, and there was a ball 4 call, and Sid Hudson flipped him off. Okay, which obviously in most situations would be room for ejection there, but McGowan just turned around, flipped him off right back, and they just kept playing. So I guess they were flipping the bird a lot back then. I don't know. I've never really heard that. So in the off season, McGowan had 2 pursuits that kept him pretty busy: writing and speaking. He'd go on speaking tours around the Northeast, basically, talking about baseball-related things, telling stories and things like that. And I guess he was pretty good at it. And he wrote. He was quite a writer. He wrote articles largely like human interest stories about players and managers and coaches, and of course umpires for like the Sporting News, Liberty Magazine, Esquire Magazine. For a number of years, he wrote a syndicated column called 3 and 2 that ran in like 30 newspapers. So, he made a little extra cash doing those things, and he was a wanted speaker as well. However, his probably his biggest lasting legacy to the game and to umpiring was in the form of umpire schools. He always believed that should be started. So in 1938, working out of his home in Chevy Chase, Maryland, he conducted classes and practice sessions at University of Maryland. And then in 1939, he teamed up with fellow umpire Emmett Thomas Ormsby to establish a school in Jackson, Mississippi. And then they moved that later to Florida. And then the school operated for about 1 month between, January and March for each year in various Florida locations. And thanks to the GI Bill after the Second World War, enrollment really went up. So in 1947, it was 251, and 95% of those guys were veterans. So that's interesting. Many graduates of the school, they got work in the minor leagues. A few, even, one of the early ones, John Rice, he made it to the majors. And the school continues today. After several changes in ownership, it's the Harry Wendelstedt Umpire School in Florida. So anyway, McGowan, he died at his home in Silver Springs in December 1954 of a heart attack brought on from some complications, struggling with diabetes. And he had a big funeral, and lots of former baseball players and managers and everybody else involved came there. A lot of umpires. American League President Will Harridge came there. Senators owner Clark Griffith came there. Manager Bucky Harris did. And Sam Rice was there. A lot of active Senators players because he was in the Washington, D.C. area. So that's our umpire spotlight. Bill McGowan, who definitely has the lasting legacy of helping to establish the umpire schools that all the professional umpires go through to this day. If you're like me in the Midwest or some other colder climate that has all 4 seasons, you know that it can be a little challenging at times in the off season to stay in shape. A lot easier to stay in shape when you're working and moving around and doing your games and everything. Of course, you should be doing some extra things during the season as well, stretching types of exercises, other cardiovascular, that's good as well. But I see a lot of guys that they have a little trouble with their weight, or they're a bit out of shape. I don't know if they've tried to make it a habit to get themselves in a little bit more shape. And I'm not talking about, running every day and working out with weights and all this other stuff. There are a handful of guys, and great for them, that are able to do that, and they're in great shape. They look like a Navy SEAL or something. All right? I'm not a Navy SEAL, and I don't look like one. But the best thing I think you can do is walk. You got to walk. And you can even walk when it's cold, because I live in, right now it's, December here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We got 2 or 3 inches of snow still on the ground from the other day, and we're, hovering in the mid-30s, and it's only going to get worse from there. But I do walk as much as I can, like with my dog or myself, or I go someplace else that's indoors, like at the YMCA, they have a track or something, and you need to try to get, if you can get 30 minutes of walking in a day, several times a week. I mean, it's great if you could do it every day, but if you do it 4 or 5 times a week, that's pretty darn good. And I was looking up some, research on walking, because, in a lot of ways, and my family doctor tells me that walking is just as good for your heart and your cardiovascular as jogging, and it's a lot easier on your body. And I know that. I've had surgeries on both my knees, so, I don't need to be pounding them around. So anyway, over the years, studies have been linked to walking to the prevention of all kinds of conditions and diseases like, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, anxiety, depression, arthritis, fatigue, dementia, hormonal imbalances, Alzheimer's, and cognitive declines, thyroid disorders, all kinds of stuff. So the big thing is that, there are like 6 big benefits for walking. And this is not just because it'll make you in better shape to be an umpire, which it will, but also just make you healthier and hopefully live longer and a happier life. So first thing, it can fight chronic diseases like heart disease, arthritis, diabetes. And it's one of the safest exercise forms. It supports joints with improved circulation, which helps the lymphatic system to do its job and lowers inflammation. Second, walking's free. It's effective. And it's a simple way to maintain a good physical shape and improve muscular, heart, and hormonal functions. Third thing, walking is an incredibly effective way to maintain a healthy weight. It is an easy exercise to keep up with, has a low risk of causing injuries, unlike jogging and things, and weightlifting, and does not cause exhaustion compared to more intensive workouts, even like swimming, for example. It lowers the risk of stroke. This is the fourth thing. Coronary heart disease, heart attacks. A study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine back in 2013 showed that a brisk walk positively affects resting heart rate, blood pressure, exercise capacity, maximal oxygen consumption, and quality of life. Fifth thing, walking's a natural way to improve mood, and I've noticed this before. The fight fights depression and anxiety, commonly known as runner's high. All forms of exercise release natural feel-good hormones in the brain, including endorphins. So it does that as well. And then lastly, taking a regular walk stops the loss of bone mass due to aging, which many of us umpires are doing. We're all aging. Walking is a great way to fight against gravity as it forces the bones to become stronger to continue supporting the body weight and lowers the risk for fractures or osteoporosis. So anyway, walking is a low-impact exercise, requires minimal equipment, and can be performed at your own pace at any time. I mean, you can get a treadmill and do it in your house. You can go to a walking track. You can walk in a mall or some other store. And, of course, you can walk outside any time of year. I mean, I just bundle up in the wintertime and go do it. And I try to walk every day if I can. Some days don't work out, but I try to get at least a mile to a mile and a half in every day. And I think it does help. It's one of the ways that I was able to, I felt like it was a rehab technique for my knees once I had my, surgeries and stuff on those the last few years. So that is my suggestion for you. If you're looking for something to start to get yourself in a little bit better shape, just start walking more and make it, a conscious thing. You can get some kind of device to keep track of that. You can do that on your phone. You can do that on, one of the smartwatches and different things like that. And that's always kind of nice because it kind of shows maybe how many calories you're burning or how far you've been walking, and it helps you set goals and those kind of things as well. Or you can just do it on your own. You know how far it is around your block or wherever you're going, and try to do that consistently. See if it helps with any kind of health issues you might be having, or if you feel like you're a little bit overweight, see if it helps with that as well. All right. If you do try to do that and, have some feedback, I'd like to hear how it works for you. All right. So there's my, my umpire health tip for today. On previous episodes, I've talked about the new NCAA rules targeting pace of play with the 20-second action clock. So I think I've gone over that pretty well, but there's a couple of other changes for 2020 that I want to mention and make you aware of. Deals with bat colors and bat testing. So in the 2020 season, the first change involves, the color of the bat barrel. So it must now be of a predominantly contrasting color to the color of the baseball between the 18-inch mark and the end cap. And so the rationale here is to help alleviate safety concerns created, for fielders having trouble picking up the ball off the bat when it's white on white, basically. So they have a list of available bats, and bats are, of course, very expensive, so I'm sure that's going to break some people's budgets, but that's a good safety rule change, and it is going to be in effect for 2020. The second change involves bat barrel compression testing. So prior to each regular season series or single date of competition, all bats used in competition are supposed to pass the barrel ring test and barrel compression testing. So this was kind of approved back in 2017, but they delayed the implementation because of concerns about cost relative to purchasing the necessary equipment. So the rule will go into effect at the NCAA Division I level for 2020, and then for Division II and III, it'll be in 2021. Anyway, those are a couple of changes that you should be aware of if you work NCAA baseball, and those are frequently the kind of rule changes that end up on the test. They usually have one or two test questions that revolve around what might be the new changes for the upcoming season. So be aware. A couple shows ago, I did a segment on goals for your 2020 season, and I got a message concerning that from David Cuthrell, an umpire here in Michigan, who I've had the pleasure of working with before. And he sent me a Facebook message basically stating three main things. That his goals for next year are, one, working at taking plays at home utilizing the wedge, which is a great thing to do, no doubt about it. It's a great thing to do on all of your bases. You should be trying to work that into your umpiring. Second thing was positioning and taking plays at first base. No doubt that is important. We have a lot of plays at first base. I mean, that's where a lot of outs are, if you really start thinking about it. So your technique and your timing and your positioning are vitally important there, and definitely something to look at. Look at how others do it that you trust, and professionals and higher level guys, and see what they do to try to help with your game. Third thing he mentioned was when he's on the bases, doing a better job communicating with his plate partner. Communication, super important. If you're working 2-man, 3, 4, whatever you're working, the more vocal you are, the more we're the other team out there, man. You gotta be talking to your partners, letting them know where you're at, where they're going, reminding them of things. Particularly the bigger the game. The bigger the game, the more you got to remind people. Sometimes guys can get caught up in a situation, or if it's a tight game, in a certain inning or something like that. So make sure that doesn't happen, and the way to make sure you're doing that is making sure you're doing your signals, you're communicating, and you're communicating when the ball's in play. If it's a fly ball, who's got that ball, you're calling it, you're telling your partner he's got it, you're telling him where you're going, you're hearing those things, you're being loud about it. That's definitely a worthwhile thing. So I appreciate David sending that in to me, and hopefully if anybody else has certain goals that they are planning on working on for 2020, feel free to send them in to me anytime, any way you want to, and I'll be happy to share those and give you my opinions on them. Thanks, David. Thanks for sticking with me on this extended episode of the Hammer and Umpire Podcast. I know not everybody always makes it to the end, so I appreciate you sticking with me until the whole show is over. A couple things to mention. We're on a variety of different listening platforms now, including iHeartRadio and TuneIn. Also, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, CastBox, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Stitcher. And I know that if you have an Alexa device and you just say, Alexa, play the Hammer and Umpire Podcast, it'll play the most recent episode. So that's pretty cool. We continue to have a good following out there. 96% of the listeners are in the United States, but we do have listeners in Canada and New Zealand and Indonesia, and I thank those people in those countries for finding me on the web and tuning into the show. In the United States, is pointed out to me last time that when I listed off the different states that people listen from, that I forgot to mention Alabama. So I apologize. Todd Egger pointed that out to me. But we do have listeners in Michigan, Oregon, California, New York, Texas, Virginia, the District of Columbia, Ohio, Illinois, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Florida, Indiana, New Mexico, Kansas, Nebraska, North Carolina, Utah, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, Kentucky, Wisconsin, Nevada, Maryland, South Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, and of course Alabama. Wherever you're listening from, I appreciate it more than you can even imagine. Hopefully you'll continue to do so, and maybe tell a few other people about the show if you think it's good enough for them to listen to as well. I was happy that this week I was able to get some feedback from some people through a variety of channels. If you'd like to give me some information or tell me what you think about a particular topic or suggest something, feel free to tweet me at Kevin R. Weber. Email me at spinafusion06@yahoo.com. Check out the Hammer Podcast Facebook page, and you can leave a message through that, or you can leave me a 60-second or less voicemail through the Anchor.fm app. Until next time, keep calling strikes.